Today is 7th of January, which for many might mean nothing, but for Eastern countries, it's Christmas. Christmas according to the old calendar. And Moldova being in between East and West, we celebrate Christmas all period between 25th of December and 7th of January. It's a Christmas period. And today in church, we read from Matthew 2. We read about the wise men, but I read the next part of text, which talks about Jesus running to Egypt. An angel came to Joseph and told him to take his family to Egypt, to run away from Herod. And he lived there as a stranger for some years, and then he came back. And that made me think that, in a way, Jesus repeats the history of Israel. It's like a hint that he is trying to identify himself with Israel. And that combines in my mind with all the ambiguity that we find in the book of Isaiah about who is the servant of the Lord. In his Songs of the Servant, Isaiah talks about this servant of the Lord, and sometimes it's Israel, sometimes it's the coming Messiah, sometimes it's us. Maybe it's never completely clear, and I think that ambiguity is intentional, and it's like the true answer is the servant of the Lord is all of us, and we all in a way share some elements in our story of our lives. We all at some point have been strangers, have been running, have been through troubles, just like Israel, just like Jesus. Jesus was in Israel, then he ran to Egypt, then he came back to Israel, then he suffered a lot of things like the history of Israel. Exile, Egypt. There is something inherently valuable in being a stranger and in being uncertain about what the next day might bring in your life. In periods like that, God works in a special way in the hearts of men and women, because people are especially sensible to the voice of God when they are forced to depend on God for the basic security of everyday life. So in our context, we have lots of Ukrainian refugees coming from Ukraine to European countries, and some of them are Christians, evangelical Christians like us. And when these people come to the churches in Europe, there's a phenomenon that we can observe, that some of the European churches might be stalled. Maybe they lack the passion and desire to continue pursuing the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And when these people come and they live in Europe as strangers, they bring a new life to these churches. And in this way, they are a blessing for the European churches. And I want to encourage, on this Christmas day, I want to encourage these Ukrainian refugees to not see themselves as victims, but to see themselves as blessings, as they are used by God. So instead of woeing to the situation they find themselves in, I want to encourage them to see God's purpose and calling in the position where they find themselves, because God can use them like that. I also want to encourage those who live in their own countries, in their comfortable houses, in their comfortable churches. Don't settle in too much. Leave space for change, because God's calling can be surprising and we need to be sensible to the voice of God. Whenever He calls us to go somewhere, we should be ready to go. And if that means living as strangers somewhere, not being sure about our future, so be it. God works in our lives most effectively in those times.